Hello and welcome to Presentation 1. I'm Brian Funk and today I'll be showing you some of the basics for working in Blender. We'll be modeling a simple baseball bat from start to finish, so let's begin. We're just going to be modeling, so let's just select a general project to start. So here's the default view. You can rotate the camera by holding middle mouse button, pan by holding shift and middle mouse button, and zoom in and out using the scroll wheel. Right now we have a cube to start, which we aren't going to need, so we can delete it. This can be done by selecting the object and hitting delete, or by right-clicking and selecting delete. What we will need is a cylinder, so let's create a primitive by going to the Add panel and selecting Mesh, and then Cylinder. We're just going to move it up a little bit to give it some space above the grid. And there we go. Alright, so we're going to need to build off this shape, so let's switch over to Edit mode. The object is now selected. In the top left corner, we can manipulate it by its vertices, edges, and faces, which is what we'll begin with. So let's select the top face and move it up a little bit. We are then going to switch over to the Extrude tool for the top plane. Keep in mind the silhouette we're going for here. We have a rounded top, flat base that gradually tapers inwards, and a sort of rotund bulb at the bottom. So let's start adding some extrusions to work with. Each time we add one, we're going to scale the face accordingly to match the shape we want. The scale tool can be selected from the sidebar or by holding the spacebar and S, and similarly, spacebar and E for the extrude tool. We are just going to keep on refining that shape, making it appear rounded at the top. That looks pretty good so far, so let's scale the bottom slightly in and extrude it to make it longer. We will keep repeating this process, making sure to pay attention to how the shape relates to the reference. I'm noticing it's not quite accurate at the base, so I'm going to select the edges in the middle to make it slightly wider. Now we'll go back to faces and continue extruding and scaling. You can make adjustments with the Move tool when necessary by holding spacebar and G. Note that when using the marquee tool to select edges or faces, that selection is limited to screen visibility, as you can see here. To select both sides of the mesh, turn on X-ray shading mode in the top right and you'll be able to select all edges around the mesh. So the base of the bat is looking mostly on point, so let's work on the bottom. Once again, keep in mind the bulb shape at the end. It will require a lot of close together extrusions. Don't forget to keep scaling before you make each one to save yourself time on having to edit edges afterwards. Okay, I like how our silhouette is coming along, so I'm just going to make a few more small adjustments, and next we're going to look at detailing and smoothing the shape. Alright, now we are going to make our shape a little more refined and a little less blocky. We want the top to really blend those edges together and give it a smoother feel, like in the reference, and make the taper transition a little bit better. So we are going to make sure that we are in edge selection mode, which we are, and we are going to use the bevel tool. Just bevel wherever you feel it is necessary. We aren't worrying too much about poly count right now. notice that there is an area here that we want to give more curve to, but bevel won't do the job. So instead we are going to use the loop cut tool to add a new edge. We are then going to scale it outwards. Okay, I think it's looking good. We've got a good definition of the silhouette here, so now let's move on to smoothing. The first type of smoothing that I'm just going to show you is subdividing, in which the object's edges are split to make the mesh more complex. If we go over to the modifier properties on the right and find where subdivision surface is, we can then select it, and you'll see the model become more complex. For simplicity, I'm not going to apply it. Instead, we are going to smooth the shading for the object. If we go to the Object Properties panel and click on Shade Smooth, you'll see the mesh's edges soften, giving the smooth look we're aiming for. And there we have it. With everything else finished, we will now switch over to the UV editing panel at the top towards the middle, so we can then unwrap the UVs and later texture our mesh. We're going to want to select our entire object so that we can view the UVW map, and then we are going to be making some seams for unwrapping, so let's select the top edges. We'll then go to the UV panel and find where it says Mark Seam, and we're going to want to click on that. Cut will be made, and we'll want to do the same for the bottom. Lastly, we'll want to select an edge loop from top to bottom and mark a seam there as well. Okay, now we just need to select the full mesh once again, and then in the UV panel we can select Unwrap, giving us the result we intended. Alright, the last section will simply just be exporting the object, and then we are going to bring it into Unity. Okay, everything's looking good, so we're going to go over to File, and we're going to export the object. We'll be exporting it as an OBJ file. I've already got this name, so I'm just going to change it to a second version. And just hit export, and there you go. Alright, here we are in Unity. I took the liberty of texturing the bat to show you that the UVs indeed did work. I even gave him a little face just because why not? And you can see the mesh imported just like it would have, having been built in any other program. So, just works just fine. Alright, so that's going to do it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't subscribe because this isn't my job, and have a nice day.